So to be a Democrat in Kentucky, you have to throw the president right underneath the bus. You have to say that you voted for Obama, but you sued him right away. You have to sue Obama in order to become the governor. And I don't think that's not a good Democrat. The Democrats need to become democratic. The Democrats need to pick up their democratic progressive agenda up. They need to up their game. They need to be moral, be moralist with crystal clarity. They need to have convictions, and they need to have a strong, progressive platform with many progressive planks on that platform. I'd like to see a top 10 list. I'd like to see what Conway's resolutions would be for Kentucky. So a couple things that Obama has done for Kentucky. I've been 50-50 with Obama, but because of his domestic spying and the Guantanamo Bay and the military-industrial complex, the empire. We're not taking care of our troops, but we are taking care of occupying the entire world. And empire doesn't help the working classes. So I can't embed the video, even though the link above just goes to the General Hardball video archive page. But on MSNBC's Hardball this evening, Governor Steve Beshear gave an updated total for the American Care Act enrollments via the Connect Exchange, Obamacare. So 521,000 Kentuckians have signed up for Obamacare. This was in August 2014 of last year. The numbers speak for themselves. From the time we opened up our healthcare exchange on October 1st, at 12:01 a.m., Kentucky had started swarming all over that website, and today, 9 months later, 521,000 Kentuckians, almost 1 in 10 Kentuckians, have signed up for affordable health care coverage. And that's even more remarkable when you think that 75% of those were new enrollees. So over 500,000 people, according to in August 2014, have signed up for Obamacare. Why would you run away from that issue? That's a resounding success, and people are going to get fined next year. So if you dislike free health care today, you're going to really hate it when you get fined because you didn't sign up. It's the law. It's like carrying car insurance. You got to do it. It's the law. They force you to buy private car insurance. I would rather have a public option. The government should take care of the insurance. Had that public option, it'd be cheap as heck. I would buy it the next day. $5 for car insurance, $5 for medical care. It should be called Kentucky Care. 521,000 individuals. 521,000. Over 500,000. This is it's actually going to be above 600,000 people. Since November 15, 2014, more than 131,000 Kentuckians have enrolled. 131,000 plus 530, 650,000 people. 650,000 Kentuckians now have health insurance that didn't have health insurance before, and Mitch McConnell wants to take that away. Root and branch. He wants to make sure poor Kentuckians have no health insurance, no health care, go back to having all this cancer, all these cancers of everything, cancer of the heart, of the brain, of the skin, of the lungs, of the spleen, every cancer you could think of, rectal cancer. Number one in every one of those categories. Let's start curing cancer. Let's start being healthy, Kentucky. Let's start exercising and running and eating right and taking care of ourselves and not catching cancer. So, over 500,000 people have signed up. It should be criminal to allow anybody to die. In America, every industrialized nation has health insurance. It's a human right. And to deny health insurance, health care coverage to a person who is sick is criminal. To let anybody die. There's some Bobby Jindal state, I think Louisiana, he denied expanded Medicaid. And anybody that died under Bobby Jindal's regime because they had a lack of health care coverage should sue Bobby Jindal. Bobby Jindal should be held responsible for anybody that died without health insurance. It's a human right. We're the freest, richest nation in the world. Every industrialized nation has health care. It's a human right. A human right, like to water, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Water, food, clothing, shelter. And the same goes for anybody that wants to dismantle Obamacare root and branch. That is criminal. That absolutely is criminal. Connect, here I got a Wikipedia page about what Connect is. It's Kentucky Health Benefit Exchange. It's the health insurance marketplace, previously known as the Health Insurance Exchange in the U.S. State of Kentucky, created in accordance with the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. Oh, okay, not American Care Act. Affordable Care Act. The marketplace operates a website. So they have a website. And this, it's just a website, right? Mitch McConnell, just a website. It's not just a website. It's a healthcare exchange marketplace for everybody in Kentucky to jump on, get the cheapest healthcare out there for your families. And it says it's offered to individuals and families who are not covered by their employer. So any of the employers that do not have health insurance, you can get it through Connect. I think it's Connect.com. KYNECT.com. Within the first 4 days of operation, 137,000 individuals were reported using it. And then the New York Times reported that Kentucky is far ahead of most in signing up people at the end of October to the first month of enrollment. By April 15, 2014, over 410,000 Kentuckians had signed up for health care plans through Connect. TennCare has a health care plan. Tennessee has a health insurance plan. It's gone through its trials and tribulations, but they've had it since 1994. Germany's had health insurance since 1871. Over 140 years ago. 140 years ago, Germany had free health insurance. Tennessee tried to do it in 94. They had some ups and downs. You got too many people enrolled in it. It became too bloated. They had to do some cutbacks. And then eventually it transferred to the new federally managed healthcare insurance marketplace in the federalhealthcare.gov website, late 2013. So TennCare is still up and essentially just did what Kentucky did instead of going through the ups and downs. And it's, through the federal government. So now the federal government in Kentucky pays for Medicaid, Medicaid being the top third of Kentucky's budget. So when you hear about the Republicans talking about cutting and slashing the budget, they're talking about K through 12, they're talking about college, they're talking about Medicaid. You want less Medicaid? Vote for Republican in governor. Vote a Republican for governor in November 2015. If you want them to slash and burn all these programs, I wouldn't mind them slashing corrections. That's a big part of it. And then there's public assistance, which is less than 1%. But K through 12, college money, higher education money, 26%. 20% is the K through 12, and then I want to say less than 20% for the Medicaid, like 19.5% or so. So those are the three biggest things that they're going to cut. They're going to cut your Medicaid, they're going to cut your K through 12, and they're going to cut your college money. And these are essential services that we need in order to survive. Sure, I'm sure there's bureaucratic waste, just like there is in anything. But we need college, we need K through 12, and we need Medicaid. And that would be protected under a Young administration. Medicaid would be protected under the Young administration, and it would be expanded to include a public option. Meaning that Geoff Young would expand Obamacare and allow anybody and everybody to buy Kentucky health insurance, Kentucky Care, Young Care. And he's in favor of taxing the rich. So you want to pay for your pensions, you want to pay for these austerity measures, that's one plan. And that's only one small piece of it. There's a whole bunch. But that's one part. Increasing unions, that's another part of his plan to increase Kentucky's economics. Increase unions, tax the rich. He's in favor of legalizing casinos. And there's other plans out there that he has too. So that's under a Young administration. Under a Young administration, your Medicaid is protected, K through 12, and college monies are protected. The biggest things in the budget would stay funded at the current levels. They would not be cut. I would like for him to actually say that there would be no new taxes on anybody that's under $250,000 and below. But I haven't got to that part yet. So the largest new spending would be $1 billion to redevelop abandoned coal mines. So Obama has a war on coal? Really? He's spending $1 billion in Kentucky. If the Republicans accept it, Mitch McConnell could filibuster this and say, to hell with the coal miners. $1 billion would go to redevelop abandoned coal mines. And then it would go to states and tribes in $200 million increments over 5 years. Other proposals include $20 million from the Department of Labor for states to help workers who lost their coal mining jobs by training them for other professions, and $25 million to the Appalachian Regional Commission to help coal communities develop economic development plans. It also is entrepreneurs to help small business and entrepreneurs out. Is to get anybody who is fired from the coal jobs a new job. That's not a war on coal miners. That's not a war on coal. That's someone who cares about coal and the coal miners and the unions and the working class people. Obama's done a lot. Obama's done a lot of good. Jack Conway wants to sue the EPA. And I'm going to get back to this here in a second. But this happened in Shepherdsville. And it became the poster child. So it wasn't just some tiny accident that happened in Shepherdsville in Bullitt County. What happened was that they had all this toxic drums and they just kept piling it up in a pile, and then it became a disaster. And they used that as the poster child to get Superfund, a big fund to go around cleaning up ecological disasters. But I want to mention the other things that Barack Obama has done for Kentucky. Got us Obamacare. He's spending money to help displaced coal miners who lost their jobs. He's building public works projects. $9 billion of Kentucky's budget comes from the federal government. Every dollar that we send to Obama, he gives us $1.50. We're Greece. If you were to compare United States to the European Union, we are Greece. And the federal government has been bailing us out the entire time. In fact, we are biting the hand that feeds us. What a bunch of hypocrites for chickens to vote for Colonel Sanders. Colonel Sanders is going to cut your benefits. He's going to make sure he doesn't care about your life. He's going to, give you the least amount of food and health care and education that you need. He only has one objective for you. You're on the farm of Kentucky, and he's going to slice and dice all the raw materials, get all the raw resources out, get as many corporations in there, and then part you out for cheap labor. That's what these Republicans are going to do. There's a Republican class war coming. And they're going to slice and dice the entire state of Kentucky and all its raw materials and resources. Take it all for themselves. And then give some of us the breadcrumbs. Many of us at minimum wage jobs. And Young administration would be in favor of an increase of minimum wage to at least $10 an hour. While I understand the economics of it isn't 100% sound, I believe that people should have human rights. Human rights should trump just employing somebody. If you have a job that doesn't give that person a livable wage, that job should be illegal. If that person cannot make a living doing the job that you give them, that job should not exist. That should be criminal, and that should be illegal. And that's FDR. FDR also said that fascism is when capitalism and the government join together. And that's what we're seeing right now. Okay, so Barack Obama's done a lot for Kentucky. He gave us Obamacare. He gave us health insurance. Over 500,000 people in Kentucky now have health insurance, which didn't have it before. 75% of them, the majority of them, didn't have health insurance before. And he also saved Kentuckians in 2 big natural disasters. There was the hurricanes in March 2009, or 13, or 2012. March 2012, and then there was the ice storms in 2009. And the ice storms in 2009, January 2009, so you got 2012, 2009. This is all during the winter time, so it would be like, right now is February, so it's in between these 2 months. But right now, 6 years ago, over here, it's reported in Western Kentucky, over 1 million residents did not have a power. And 100,000 of them didn't have power for over a week. 65 people were killed nationwide. 35 people died in Kentucky in January 2009. 35 people died in Kentucky. And I think 21 people died during the tornadoes in 2012. 21 people died in the tornadoes 2012, and then 35 Kentuckians died January 2009. And who declared emergency? Who gave federal dollars to Kentucky to make sure that the National Guard got out to each and every single one of the Kentuckians that had no power and got them in a better spot? Set up FEMA camps so that way they had a place to live. Who did that? That was Barack Obama. Barack Obama did that. The roads projects, public works, new schools, new hospitals, Obamacare, and he saved Kentucky's butt in 2009 and 2012. They were calling for Obama, the problems in Kentucky, to be his Katrina. Barack Obama just let a bunch of poor whites freeze to death out in the middle of nowhere. If you use the same arguments they used against New Orleans, well, they should just move. Why are they in the middle of nowhere? So thank God Barack Obama has higher integrity than Bush and any of those of his supporters. 3 days he waited during Katrina. So most of the people died due to carbon monoxide poisoning due to power generators and kerosene heaters being used indoors without proper ventilation. And so that's most people died because of the carbon monoxide poisoning. They're trying to heat themselves, and they used kerosene heaters, and it, I guess, depleted all their oxygen. So the National Guard, the biggest call-up of the National Guard in Kentucky's history, Steve Beshear had all of them out, 40,000 National Guards people. And that happened in January 2009. So that was Barack Obama. And, they declared a national emergency. Beshear requested the funds. Barack Obama give Kentuckians the money to save us. And then he would do it again in 2012. Frankfort, Kentucky. Governor Steve Beshear is formally requesting an expedited major disaster declaration for President Obama after a barrage of deadly tornadoes and damaging storms struck Kentucky on Friday. There's no doubt in my mind that the damages to our state are so heavy that we will qualify for federal disaster aid, Governor Beshear said. To speed that process, today I am sending President Barack Obama notification that I'm formally requesting a federal disaster declaration. By requesting the declaration now, Kentucky can expedite the process of getting Federal Emergency Management Agency assessment and assistance teams in the communities that need it most, Governor Beshear said. FEMA, that's your, FEMA camps, Alex Jones, watch out. They're going to throw Kentuckians in FEMA camps, and then they're going to keep them there. It's going to be like concentration camps, like reservations, like we did the Japanese Americans in World War II. There are several kinds of federal assistance, including help for local governments, for small businesses, and for individuals. Governor Beshear said, we'll maintain close communication with our federal partners so we can get that information out to our communities quickly as federal assistance is authorized. Governor Beshear talked yesterday with President Obama and Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano about the devastation from the storms in Kentucky. Governor Beshear, Lieutenant Governor Jerry Abramson, National Guard officials, and lawmakers yesterday toured parts of Kentucky hit hardest by the storms while traveling several of our worst hit counties. Yesterday, I met some of the people who survived this unbelievably strong band of storms. Governor Beshear said, I'm heartbroken by the destruction these tornadoes brought to our homes and businesses, and for the families who are mourning the loss of loved ones. So there were people that died. This is just proof that this happened March 2012. So 2 big times. And this time in March 2012, 3 years ago, you had a bunch of tornadoes tearing across Kentucky, and an F3 went through Morgan County. And then all the funds, the FEMA funds, were stolen. So the people didn't even get the money that was supposed to be given to them. It's almost like Somalia. You go there and give them food, but the warlords take it and divvy it up. That's sort of what happened here with the FEMA funds, FEMA money, Obama bucks. So Obama gave Kentuckians money, saved Kentuckians in two big crises. When Kentucky had a crisis, Barack Obama was there, saving every single one of those Kentuckians who did not vote for him. He did what was right, regardless of the political ground game. So that takes integrity, and that takes honor, and that takes dignity. It takes a proud person. You know, he could have been spiteful. The senators have been giving Barack Obama hell ever since they got in there. If Barack Obama was to cut Kentucky off, you would see a whole bunch of Kentuckians starve to death. A lot of people are on welfare. So it makes no sense to be biting the hand that feeds. And it makes no sense for the chickens to vote for Colonel Sanders. So with Jack Conway, it's weird with the EPA. He's in favor of mountaintop removal. He thinks it's okay. Coal corporations decapitate all of Appalachia, get all the coal that they want. You know, don't pollute and don't do this and don't do that. But it's okay. Go ahead and do it. Who cares? He sued the EPA. He threw Barack Obama underneath the bus. And I wanted to actually come across the Valley of the Drums. So this is the thing that happened in Bullitt County. Here's all the drums that were spread all over the place. And that's why they call it the Valley of the Drums. It's where the Superfund Act comes from. The Valley of the Drums. All these just all these industrial waste drums just piled up. Now I want to go to this side and back because the EPA, the environment, energy, I feel like it's all connected. Okay, so just the environment actually dictates who we are. Mostly the environment dictates who we are. So the Paducah gaseous diffusion plant, I'm open to nuclear power. I'm open to considering it. But Geoff Young had told me that it was too expensive. But I remember playing SimCity. And SimCity, it was good, right? It was okay. Except every once in a while you have a big nuclear disaster and everybody died. But if you didn't have a nuclear disaster, there was less smoke, less pollution, and you actually got to produce more electricity for more people. So I'm open to it, but if it's more expensive, then But I heard that Paducah gaseous diffusion plant actually produces 20 plus percent. 20% of all the electricity in America comes out of this one nuclear power plant. It's in McCracken County near Paducah. And it produced enriched uranium. And so actually it says 1952 to 2013. So it seems like they've quit doing it. Is that what the implication is? But this is what Iran wants to do. They want to enrich uranium. And that's what Kentucky has been doing. And unfortunately, we do get a lot of sludge ponds and toxic dumps and nuclear facilities. Not because of, the great economic benefits, but sort of Kentucky is the dumping ground for the United States. Just put it in Kentucky, right? Put it in those hills. Who cares? Now, I'm mixed with this because it produces, the nuclear power plant in Paducah produces over 20%. I've read one report about that. So, I need to get more sources on that. But that's 20%. That's remarkable. 1/5 of all Americans get all their electricity from one nuclear power plant. Now, they had a big cleanup here. And so that cost money. Contamination. They had some sort of spill. Lawsuits. And then there's the cleanup status that's happening right now. So I hear it's still running, but they're also cleaning it up. So when you offset those costs, it produced electricity for all them years, but now you got to clean up all the waste. So do we make any money? Did we do good as a society? There's pros and cons to everything we have, and do the pros outweigh the cons? And, I think these things should be away from all residential and commercial places. It should be in the middle of nowhere. Maybe you could set these on top of those decapitated mountains. I don't know. That's on top of a mountain, though. That would get into the groundwater. I don't know, man. Anytime you have a toxic dump, you can't really have anything around it. It kills property value rates all around it. And who wants to live next to a toxic sludge dump, or who wants to live next to a nuclear plant? Right, you have 3 eyes and you'll be glowing. So, like I said, it's a mixed. I'm open to it, but if it's more expensive, then it's no reason to do it. Geoff Young wants to check out solar and water power and, like 4 or 5 other ones in addition, I guess, to oil and coal and possibly nuclear. But I think he's ruled out nuclear because it's too expensive. But I think he would be open to it if it became cheaper. That's one, possible disagreement that we have. On death penalty, I oscillate between Marco Chapman deserved to die, but the state is so corrupt, they don't deserve a right to go around killing people. And whereas he deserved to die, we didn't deserve to kill him. I know it's a little jumbled, but if that makes sense. He deserves to die, but we don't deserve to murder him. We don't deserve to put him to death. That puts a stain on our hands, which we didn't need. And it's barbaric. So as a government, we should set the example. Murder is wrong. But Marco Chapman deserved to die. So, I don't know. The death penalty, I think you should err in it being abolished. And on the side of it being abolished. And also, you should follow up with Jared Neal's study to see if it's actually more expensive to put people on death row than it does to put them in life in prison. I've heard that stat too. And if it's more expensive to kill a man than it is to put him in life in prison, then it's a conservative argument. We're saving money, keep him life in prison. Find out who, what, why that monster was made the way he was. And I don't know if there's any chance of, reintegrating into society after something so heinous. But it says something about us as a society, how we deal. He deserved to die, someone who doesn't deserve to die. So, that would be the travesty of a court system is you have a death penalty and that you used it and you killed an innocent man. So, Marco deserved to die. But this other guy, Ralph Bake, now there's 3 people that Jack Conway said he wanted to put to death. And he was not guilty. He said it was self-defense. And it seems like it was self-defense. And so why would you kill somebody who was just defending themselves? So put an innocent man to death, Jack Conway is in favor of doing. Plus he's got the example of the criminal, immoral, and racist war on drugs. And he wants to put someone to death. And he's suing the EPA. There's been like 21,000. I read one report there was 21,000 violations on the Clean Water Act against the coal corporations. And so the coal corporations, that's corporatism. That's corporate welfare. They are not having to pay for, that's the argument is that coal companies have sulfur in them. And so they put all this sulfur into the air. Now either A, stop putting sulfur into the air, or B, pay a fine, and then the government can find ways to use that money in order to offset the pollution that is being produced. Those are your 2 options. And so that's not a war on coal. That's just coal. You're a dirty substance, and you can't be polluting as much as you are. So stop polluting so much. Coal's been a dying industry for quite some time. The increased mechanization and corporatization of coal make sure that the communities that has coal maintain third world living standards. They're banana republics. They don't even have running water in many of the coal counties of Kentucky. So, my friend who pointed out the Valley of the Drums, it's when they created the Superfund Act. He was also the one that said it was like Fukushima. And Fukushima just happened 4 years ago. Big nuclear disaster. Largest nuclear incident since Chernobyl. It measured level 7 on the International Nuclear Event Scale. A lot of people were displaced. 1,600 people died. Related to the evacuation conditions, such as living in temporary housing and hospital closures. So 1,600 people had died in Japan because of the nuclear disaster. So there's an argument against nuclear power. In the rare chance there is a nuclear disaster, it fucks everything up. Like that is an accurate use of that term. It fucks shit all up to hell. And so that's you don't want something so horrible, so you have to make sure you have preventive safeguards, that makes sure that isn't happening. So I think nuclear is a risk. Nuclear power is a risk, and if it can produce a lot of electricity at a cheap price, we got to make sure that if there is some sort of there's got to be code 5 or something that all Kentuckians understand. And we know there's a nuclear disaster, and we need to get into our underground shelters, whatever. So more work needs to be done. You would have to have regulations if nuclear power came into it. I see so many regulations. I don't want to say just put it up in Alaska, but if there are lands in Alaska where there's nobody being inhabited, there's no habitation. There's a lot of western lands. I don't know. Why Kentucky? Why beautiful Kentucky? Why you want to put poison and toxins into our soils and streams and waters, our groundwater? People drink out of that water. It's not just a scenic thing for us. It's life and death. There's no running water in many Appalachian counties. They drink out of these streams. So you have nuclear, you have coal, and it's polluting all this water. Then you're making the children of Kentucky sick. And you're poisoning their wellspring. You're poisoning their water source and their groundwater. So Toxic Legacy Revisited, Valley of the Drums, 30 years later. I already kind of mentioned a little bit about this. So, it was a huge disaster. See, here's again, and basically this is right afterwards. We finally have internet. It's been more than a week since Comcast cable went down. We are one of the fortunate ones. We have electricity and heat. An ice storm of historic proportions hit West Kentucky on January 27th and 28th. Freezing rain totals of 1 to 2 inches were reported over most of West Kentucky. So just 1 to 2 inches of freezing rain. We were without power here for a number of days, cable and internet for 7 days, and had significant damage to all the trees in our yard. We sustained some roof damage, lost all of my weather instruments, had 2 broken windows, lost the lights on the side of the house and carport, had all the sidewalk lights destroyed by branches, and witnessed 4 wrecks in the front yard. We were fortunate, though, to see our power restored as quickly as we did. Some areas were still without power at this time. Some of our friends are being told that it will be 4 to 6 weeks before power is restored. The President of the United States has declared the area a major disaster zone. More than 25 people were killed in Kentucky and dozens injured. The storm is one of the worst natural disasters in the history of Western Kentucky. The first few days and nights, I kept a journal on my laptop as the storm unfolded. And then this is his journal. I'm sure we won't get much sleep. Freezing rain fell most last night, all day today. So it's a fun read, blog.usawx.com, all these words. And so this is just every day, jotting notes every day of what his experiences were. A lot of Kentuckians were stuck in that. That was real. That happened, that was, it says 700,000 Kentuckians were thrown into the dark on Tuesday, and 200,000 of those were just in Louisville. Says that even a doctor living, a rich doctor, right, had been forced to impose on friends, fortunate enough to still have power. Trees broke and power lines went down. State officials started to scramble. President Obama had been notified about Kentucky's state of emergency on Sunday afternoon. Schuster, still without power, was surprised to see that work crews, some apparently dispatched from Alabama, were erecting new utility poles next to the fallen poles that had not yet been cleared away. Neighbors told her that the utility crews reported seeing the same sight on every block, decimated power and communication lines that had to be entirely rebuilt. Brashear said that Kentucky was in the grip of the biggest natural disaster in the state's history, and it was a crisis. A lot of historical state crises, right? The worst in Kentucky's history. The same thing with the Valley of the Drums. Why do we got to be the worst at things? It's bad enough that it's bad, but the worst, the very bottom. Situations awesome in scope. 90 of 120 counties are declared emergencies, and it's becoming an issue of communication. Communication towers and lines have gone down. Whole communication systems have been devastated, which made it difficult to assess conditions and target relief efforts. He also acknowledged that given the breadth of the emergency, some municipalities had been slow in receiving aid. There's a level of frustration at the local level, and that's completely understandable, but we're currently assessing how best to assess what capacity we need and how best to move in the equipment that will provide enough electricity. So, he was disgusted. The mayor of Litchfield, Kentucky, William Thomas' son. I'm disgusted. Litchfield is not just, 30 minutes away from here. So, that's, that's 2009. So, Kentucky, Barack Obama helped save a lot of people in Western Kentucky. I want to talk about my thoughts on the sniper. In fact, I'll probably just read that article, and then I'll call it a night. Here is the law that Mitch McConnell broke with those mailers that he got an award for. Any person who unlawfully prevents or attempts to prevent any voter from casting his ballot or intimidates or attempts to intimidate any voter so as to prevent him from casting his ballot or who unlawfully interferes with the election officers in the discharge of their duties shall be guilty of a Class D felony. Mitch McConnell got an award for being a Class D felon. How does he get away with it? How do these criminals get away with their crimes? Who is the Attorney General when this crime went down? A Class D felony. Class D. 119.155. Preventing voter from casting a ballot. It is illegal to not just intimidate somebody. Hey, don't you go to the polls, boy. But to even attempt to intimidate. Hey, are you attempting to intimidate me? I probably was. Yeah, well, that's a Class D felony. He mailed, these mailers, these violation election mailers, saying that it would be illegal if you go to the polls and committed voter fraud based on the lies of Allison Grimes. It was just a campaign tactic, a campaign trick. It looked official, made people feel like the government was watching them to prevent them from going to vote. I just watched Selma. Black people had to die just to get the right to vote. Mitch McConnell was against the motor voter registration law that Wendell Ford was in favor of. And so the suppression of votes, the suppression of voters, that's our senator. Our senator is against democracy, and he doesn't want people to go vote. He's the opposite of GOTV. He just wants the people who's going to vote for him, the diehards, to vote for him, and then he blocks everybody else. Only the diehards are allowed to go vote. No, we all go vote. Every single one of us should go vote. It should be 100%. This is a democracy. This is America. Do you understand what it means to be a citizen in a free, freedom-loving, and democratic society? Do you understand that voting is just one part of it? Everybody should go occupy government chairs. Go run for office. All you need is gumption. All you need is gumption. You don't need a degree. You just need a good heart and a smart brain. Have a smart, tactful, common sense mind. And to care about the people. And have enough gumption to put your name into the ballot. Pay for the money. Put your money down. Write your name down. Your name's on the ballot. So that's, not only should we all go vote, we all should be running for office. So I am in favor of democracy. I'm in favor of people going to vote. I am not like Mitch McConnell. It was a Class D felony. Jack Conway was the Attorney General. Jack Conway did not arrest Mitch McConnell for a Class D felony. And you want to talk about whether or not we would have won the election if Jack Conway would have arrested Mitch McConnell? Kentuckians would love to see these politicians and these bankers and these big, tough, fat cats getting arrested, put handcuffs on them, give them a park walk. You broke the law, Mitch. That's a Class D felony. You can't mess with Kentucky voters. We're allowed to vote. You can't stop us from voting. You can't even attempt to intimidate us. If you even attempt to intimidate us, Class D felony. You're a felon now. A felon. That's like rapist, murderer level. You're a felon. Grand theft larceny. Felony. Class D, the lowest of the felonies, but still, you can't mess with the right to vote. This article I came across I thought was pretty interesting about the American dollar. If the American dollar fails, we are a failing empire. The Cairo, Egypt, and Russia just signed an agreement that they're not going to trade in U.S. dollars anymore. They're going to trade in their own national currencies. The euro is stronger than the dollar. You got, all these foreign currencies. You got Bitcoin. The American dollar being used as reserve currency is becoming not as popular anymore. China and Russia are not using the American dollar. We're not the reserve currency. We're not the petrodollar anymore. And we are not backed by any gold. It's just backed by our strength as a nation, by the strength of our economy and our resolve and our working spirit. And I believe in America. I think we could produce a lot of GDP. I think we could turn this thing around. But I think we got to start talking about this. So the dollar dips and Greek debts demand attention. So what's happening in Greece is fascinating right now. Greece would be the Kentucky's counterpart in the European Union. And so just read about what's going on with Greece. It's a lot of dollars and, cents and monetary theory, which I'm not going to read, but I'm going to sort of talk about my overview of monetary theory. You got the American dollar, and if the euro got stronger and everybody started trading with the euro, the value of the dollar would drop, and we would just be worth whatever value, that we ourselves put on it. So as long as we still keep trading and exchanging cash for goods and services, that's an economy that's still strong and still working. And so I don't want more, sort of dumb labor jobs. I want more smart, creative jobs. I want the intelligent class of Kentucky to stay here in Kentucky and to live and work and to not go anywhere else. There's plenty of work for Kentucky. It's for smart, progressive, smart-minded Kentuckians. This is actually an organizer's dream. And so, the dollar is declining. We should be paying attention to this. We should come up with alternatives. I don't know if Bitcoin is it. I don't know if gold is it. Gold is just as arbitrary as paper dollars. Should Kentucky start producing Kentucky greenbacks? Should we allow people to pay for their bills in gold and silver? Bimetallism. Should we try bimetallism? I mean, these are all options for the monetary policy. Ultimately, I think if we can have a robust middle class, that we'll be able to prevail. Increase growth, make sure people have decent wages, make sure that corporations and the workers at the corporations are happy. We can have a mixed system where we combine both elements of the competing economic theories, the leading competing economic theories. So that's something to read right after this. And now, Chris Kyle. I'm just going to talk about this article. I'm not going to read it, actually. Dennis Traynor Jr. of SalonAlternate.org. The truth is unspeakable. A real American sniper unloads on American sniper. So now I haven't seen it yet. I'm sure if I got in there and watched it, I would be all backing Bradley Cooper and supportive of him. And it would be like, hey, I had to kill children. It was war. War is hell. They're savages. Fuck them. Fuck them all to hell. And then at the end he dies, sadly, when he tried to get, sort of come back to America and get his life, back together. Unfortunately, he didn't, heal the way he was supposed to heal. Now, you take Garrett Reppenhagen. This is another sniper. This is another person who, had PTSD. And when he went over there and realized that it was for lies, he had trouble with the work that he did. Whereas Chris Kyle was proud of all the murders that he had done. Garrett Reppenhagen, eventually towards the end of his tour of duty, couldn't justify murdering people anymore. He said the first people that he killed looked like his father. And so basically he killed a man, and he didn't know why he killed this man, what that man was out there doing. And he took his life. And it bothered him. And then it bothered him, with his PTSD. He goes to the VA, this Garrett Reppenhagen, goes to the VA and says, look, I'm against the war and I feel like what I did was immoral. And they said, hey, don't talk about your political views here. But he says, but my healing is dependent upon my political views. If I can't talk about how I feel about the war and about what I did, then maybe the VA cannot help me. The VA has not been nice to the soldiers. They have been cutting benefits. 3 out of 10 homeless people are soldiers. We don't take care of the troops. So that's my, with Chris Kyle, he's, this is for the Republicans and for the right. They're going to be like, hey, the Iraq War was good, and, let's rewrite history, and he's a hero. Chris Kyle was an angry psychopath. He killed a lot of innocent people and had no remorse about it. He had no feelings. That's a psycho, if you have no empathy for other people. And in his mind, he was, just starry-eyed, crystal clear, knew exactly wrong from right. God was on America's side. They were the savages. Kill everybody. Who gives a damn? He also bragged about killing people in Katrina. Bragged about killing people at a gas station. So why is Chris Kyle sniping people in Katrina? He says he kicked Jesse Ventura's ass. Jesse Ventura sued his estate and won. You can't lie and make up stuff to get paid to increase your book sales. So in a court of law, he was determined to be a liar. So regardless, at the very least, he's a liar. At the very most, he's killing Katrina people. He's killing us. He's killing the citizens of America just like he was doing in Iraq. So what's the difference? How are you going to kill us? Soldiers, I always like soldiers better than the police because soldiers go overseas to fight for, America, for what's right and good and, peace, justice, democracy. At least that's what they think. And that's all that matters, really. I don't like how Vietnam treated their troops by spitting on them. But I think a lot of times that support the troops becomes propaganda to support the war. That's why Bill Hicks had a joke. He said that he supports the war, but he's against the troops. Because that's honestly, if you send the troops to die based on a lie, you don't support the troops. An honest person would only send their troops in the last possible, as a last possible resort, as the last option. So, I don't know. I could understand why we would need to put 10,000 boots down to fight ISIS. They did come out of nowhere. This is a horrible terrorist entity, and it's so close. It's probably scaring the holy crap out of, anybody that's not its friends. And but it's a mess that we started and created. We're an empire, 900 military bases in 153 countries. So we're an empire. That's the reason why we had the Iraq War. That's the reason why 9/11 happened, because we're everywhere. And empire doesn't help the working classes. Empire doesn't help me. We needed the National Guard to go out and check on Kentuckians to make sure they were okay. That's a good use of military. We can use the military in times of peace to build dams, roads, bridges, schools, hospitals, the things that we need, infrastructure, internet poles. Let's get some broadband internet in Kentucky. So that's with Chris Kyle. I am a little ambivalent with him. I don't blame him because it was the political leadership that put him in the situation. So he was doing his duty, being a good soldier. But the Nazis did their job. And George W. Bush could use freedom of speech. I didn't kill anybody, Bush could say, sit in his Oval Office. I just told them to do it. And they happily did it. They couldn't wait to go do it. And so with that in mind, ultimately what I think we should have done with Chris Kyle was given him mental health assistance. We should have given him all the money in the world to deal with his mental health issues. I remember watching an interview with Chris Kyle and Conan O'Brien, and he had mentioned that, well, a lot of people say thank you for serving our country, but they don't do anything about it. And he says, why don't they cook us a dinner or, give us a gift or something? Which basically is just saying, hey, this is the stuff I like. But his point with people just saying that, hey, we support what you're doing, they weren't actually, supporting him. They just were saying it, feeling good about themselves, and then walking away. Well, if you truly supported a troop, well, go help one. Do something good for an American troop, a soldier, if you truly supported it. And so Chris Kyle needed mental health assistance. He needed, he's, with the way I look at, the world and us being an empire, and it's immoral and criminal to go kill all those innocent people. Those are war crimes. Those are war crimes. And even when they hung the Nazis, they made it a crime that you cannot use the excuse because I was following orders. So if your commander orders you to do something illegal and you do it, you're responsible for the Holocaust. You're responsible for your actions and your behavior. Just following orders isn't a good enough excuse. They hung Nazis who said, I was just following orders. And unfortunately, America, we're filled with obedient sheeple. There's a lot of obedience. We're taught it in schools. Be obedient. Shut up. Do as you're told. Humanity, I think, just has a penchant for obedience. Milgram's experiments. Conformity, obedience, Stanford prison experiments. Ina Shevchenko. No, that's feminine. But Rhythm Zero. Abramovic. Maria Abramovic. It just shows the depravity of humanity. If you don't resist, if you don't stand up for yourself, people will force you to do anything that they would, may not even do themselves. I was watching in Saving Private Ryan. The commander sent 2 people over the hill to see if there were snipers and shooters over there. They stood up, they looked at each other, got support from their brethren, jumped up to take the hill, and both were killed and murdered. Dead. So the commander, he was out in the field. So actually, I respect the commander out in the field with his troops versus, somebody sort of sitting in the war room fighting amongst each other with arguments. But he told them to go die. He put them on a suicide mission. He didn't care about their lives. So you should be held accountable for your own actions. If they order you, and I've heard that they tell you this, and boot camp isn't as bad as it was, with Full Metal Jacket. They're not allowed to haze you as bad. They try to do it in other ways. But they tell you that if you are ordered to, hey, go kill those kids, your commander says, go kill all those kids, you don't have to do it. In fact, you have a moral duty to disobey any illegal order. So they tell the troops this. The troops know this. And this guy actually was Garrett Reppenhagen. It was fascinating because he said that he would actually go talk about what he was doing, and essentially the commander on the field, he had said that you just need to believe in God more. God is on America's side, so just put your faith in God. And so he used a very religious argument in order to, quell his doubts about the world. But he felt even more alienated and isolated, about that. That's not, that is an explanation, but what are why? Why is God on our side? So it didn't help, Garrett Reppenhagen. I mean, we're an empire, and we invaded a sovereign nation. That was Hitler's crime. That's why we have the United Nations. But because we're an empire, we don't have to follow the world's rules. We do as we please, do whatever we want. And so since we invaded Iraq, we haven't been attacked by China, by Russia, by the European Union. So we're okay. It turns out we can invade other countries and nobody's going to attack us. But don't sit there and act like going around killing other people's families, women, children, fathers, brothers, mothers, babies, aunts, uncles, grandparents. You don't think that killing families is going to come back on us? You don't think that's going to piss off more people and create more terrorists? Empire doesn't help me, especially when it's creating more terrorists. Chris Kyle needed help. Chris Kyle had PTSD, came back to America. So he had all that freedom to do as he pleased, could kill whoever he wanted to, got a lot of shots in, right? Was this decorated sniper, assuming that he was telling the truth in all the kills that he killed. Killed with glee, came back here, and then tried to reintegrate into a society where he wasn't allowed to go around sniping people anymore. So we definitely needed to take care of him. He was trying to teach somebody to get out of their PTSD by taking them to a gun shooting range. If there's, I would try to keep a Vietnam vet even away from any type of engines that might backfire. No, back at Nam. No loud noises. Don't take them to a shooting range. They got PTSD. You don't want them to think about those images and all that, that was happening. It might be strong and some manly thing to do, but if you're trying to, he was educating. Supposedly, Chris Kyle had gotten past his PSD, and then he was offering his advice to one of his buddies. And then 3 of them were out in the shooting range one day, and then one of his buddies, who was having issues, eventually shot Chris Kyle in the back and killed another guy. And there's going to be a trial. And so that's going to be a wild trial. There's going to be a lot of coverage of that trial. So that's my take on Chris Kyle. Now, I don't hate the guy. I don't hate him. I don't care for the Empire. He was doing his job. He went with the political establishment. Empire doesn't help me. I believe it was an international war crime, invading a sovereign nation, and Chris Kyle didn't help me. He didn't increase my freedom. He didn't increase. He didn't save me from terrorists. In fact, he may have created a lot more terrorists who want to do me harm. So there's one more thing here I just kind of came across. There's a ton of lies. I mean, the Katrina lies, and if it's not a lie, he killed Americans, you know. So he went to Iraq, killed Iraqis, and then came back and saw Americans as the same type of people, just a bunch of ants, you know. When I kill a fly, I used to care, but, you know, eventually I don't care anymore. You're going to eat my food and give me diseases. It's either me or you, fly. And so if he's killing Americans the same way he was killing Iraqis, he's killing them like flies, and he doesn't care. In fact, I respect this guy way more, this Garrett Reppenhagen, because he felt bad about killing. In fact, you're a psycho if you didn't feel bad about it. Yeah, I killed a lot of people. I don't know if they're guilty or innocent. They told me they was guilty, so I don't care. I just killed whoever they told me to kill. Yeehaw. And if you don't feel bad and it was a lie and it's war crimes, then we're unleashing a lot of killer psychopaths in America that come back from a war. And so they need to be taken care of. I think his mental health should have been taken care of. They definitely should have the suicide prevention bill that Mitch McConnell's passed is a good thing. So I'm impressed with that piece of legislation. I don't hate Chris Kyle for what he did. He was following orders. I don't think it helped our country. I think it was a big military blunder, strategic blunder. It was because of, you know, Baby Bush had heard that Saddam had threatened Daddy Bush one time. He wanted to complete what his dad didn't complete. It was about empires, about oil. It wasn't about freedom and democracy. We have a low turnout rate here. If you try to feed the homeless, you go to jail here. We got issues of freedom and democracy right here in this country. Why are we giving freedom and democracy to other countries? And if our freedom and democracy isn't working very well here, should we be exporting our system across the world, pretending like it's better? Democracy is ruled by the people. The majority should get out and go vote. The majority do not vote. Not in Kentucky. The turnout rate usually below the majority. And in off-term years, it's usually like 20, 30%. I even saw 13%. 13% turnout rate. 1 out of 10 people dictated the direction of Kentucky. 1 out of 10. That's not a democracy. And voting is the least you can do. There is he said something about Chris Kyle. He had soiled himself on purpose. He was keeping his rifle trained and just was paying attention to where he was going, and he actually crapped his pants in order to kill, you know, this enemy combatant that he was focused on. And so, you know, when he was focused on the enemy combatant, he crapped all over himself. It reminds me of Ted Nugent, who crapped on himself to get out of Vietnam. But that's war. You know, war is hell. In a macro sense, our invasion and occupation of Iraq was not a kill them or they will kill us scenario. History has borne that fact out, and that lack of context makes American Sniper a dangerous film. American Sniper rewrites the Iraq War. It's propaganda. Germany had propaganda very similar to this. But this is freely chosen propaganda, and that's the most effective kind of propaganda. When people pick it up for themselves and believe it themselves. It's why Fox News is actually so effective. People who watch Fox News are less informed about the world. They're dumber. They're stupider. They don't know what's going on around the world. Fox News just reinforces their base prejudices. And I think this film will do a very similar thing. I don't hate Seth Rogen or Michael Moore for speaking out. I mean, Clint Eastwood threatened to murder Michael Moore. That's terroristic threatening. So we just had a terrorist threatening her create a movie. And this is terrorism. I mean, how can you get bigger terrorism than invading another nation? That's bigger than any suicide bomber or any 9/11. Occupying another nation. If China occupied the United States, if Haiti did what we did to Haiti, if Chile or Honduras did to us what we did to them, the American people wouldn't stand for it. We wouldn't stand for being occupied by some other power. And we shouldn't expect anybody else to be happy with our occupation. Since we do have 900 military bases, I would actually recommend that we use them as peace emissaries to go around and establishing diplomatic ties and for trade reasons, not to, you know, help the corporations or anything like that. It's just to help the peace, help build the peace. have an embassy there that shows off the great things that America has to offer. Help the corporations have lists. Try to do that, but it's not just about the corporations. It's also about people and having fair trade policies. And so I think we can convince the world to love us instead of imposing a military rule. When need be, we can impose that military rule whenever we feel like it. But unfortunately, as the world's policemen, we suck at it. Darfur, you had a genocide that was happening in Ghana. What was that movie? Rwanda. So you had this genocide that's happening in Rwanda. You had that genocide, that civil war that was happening in Sudan. And we sat and watched it. You have the Boko Haram. You have Kony in Uganda. Boko Haram stole all those girls, kidnapped them, sold them off. Nobody done anything about it. They got away with taking all those girls. And then they've been, using boys as child soldiers for quite some time. And then we support the military dictatorships with our finances. The military dictatorship in Egypt and in Saudi Arabia, where all the 9/11 terrorists came from. We support these governments. These are our allies. And no wonder, if you want to spread love for America, I doubt supporting brutal regimes who behead falsely accused women in the public square is the way to go around building love for America. We should be winning hearts and minds, and we can do it better with love, with peace, with diplomacy. And if we would have spent all of our money on love and peace and diplomacy, the Middle East wouldn't be in such a mess right now. There wouldn't be so much chaos in the Middle East. And the world there wouldn't be so much anti-Americanism. Creating anti-Americanism is a bad idea for branding the product of America. Our dollar is slipping. We don't need to go around terrorizing people anymore. We suck as the world's policemen. Let's pack up our boys and let's come home, protect our own borders. Let's be isolationist. We can have the U.S. embassies out there as peace embassies, and just when it comes to international aggression, we cede our authority to the United Nations. The United Nations has no authority until America jumps into it. So when the United Nations, which is a world governing body, says one nation invades another nation, then that's when all the nations of the world needs to stop one nation from invading another nation. But if the United States can invade a nation, then we're setting a hypocritical example. We're allowed to drop the nuclear bombs. We're allowed to invade people. We're allowed to torture people. We're allowed to commit genocide. And we are allowed to do it because might is right. We got the guns and we got the military, and therefore we win. That's not a good. That's survival of the fittest. That's just we're just terrorizing and imposing our will upon the world, and that's not going to create. People will not love us because of that. People will love us when we liberate them, and educate them, and show just peace emissaries. Show what America has to offer. Here are the states. Here's what we believe in. Have embassies that show off the values that America believes in, and work on diplomacy. That's we don't need military bases. Maybe in some places, maybe there's some areas where we need to keep military bases in, but 900 military bases, 150 countries. For every bomb that we spend our tax money on, we're taking food out of the mouth of our children. We're taking education and health care away from them. And Jack Conway and the Republicans are going to do that. They're going to cut spending, and then we're going to spend all this money on the budget, the military budget. Half of our budget goes to the military. And we spend more money on the military than the entire world's militaries combined. The whole world, put all the whole world together, and all the military that they spend, America beats them. We're an empire. We spend all of our money on military. So somebody says, argues that the empire protects me. And if it does, then okay, then we need to be an honest empire. We need to go after ISIS. We need to go into Darfur. We need to go into Rwanda. We need to basically, whenever John McCain says let's attack, then we should be attacking if we want an empire. So either the American people need to rectify themselves. Do you want to be an empire and impose our will upon the world and hope that, us being a bunch of scaredy cats and relying on all these strong men to impose the will is going to protect us and it won't piss off more people? and it won't anger any more anti-American, and won't create more terrorists against us, okay, fine. But I don't believe it. I think by imposing our will militarily, it creates enemies, it creates resentment, it makes people feel less than, it makes them feel inferior, and they hate it. So for peace, for to make us like a benevolent empire, we could keep 900 bases, but they're U.S. embassies instead of military. And that's how Fort Sumter happened. They put a federal fort in. Once they get a chunk of land in another country, they're pretty much in your country forever. You cannot attack them, or there could be a declaration of war. So just by having a piece of land that's the American government's, there is a sanctuary for people. So, we could be a sanctuary for people. We could be saving the Julian Assanges of the world and the whistleblowers and giving them amnesty. So that the whistleblowers can point out the corruption and people can fix their governments all over the world. We can do a lot better than what we're doing. And I think a little honesty into the debate, for economics and for our military policy just makes so much sense. We have a mixed socialist capitalist system, and we're an empire. Those are facts. So do you love that we're an empire? Do you think empire helps you? Have you really thought about this? I think empire hurts us. And I think it terrorizes other people to become terrorists themselves, and it causes resentment and more anger against me, and I don't like it being done in my name. So I can understand soldiers watching it, feeling in touch with it. It's images. The images a lot of times actually live longer than anything that anybody says or prints up. And there's, so that's the reason why movies are so, I like that they're political. When I think of JFK, when I think of William Randolph Hearst, I think about their character depictions on the big screen more than about whatever they printed or anything that I read or any of their photos or pictures. So it's a strong propaganda piece, and I'm sure it made me what I got from it was I care about the soldiers. I know soldiers that went over there, and while I can take sort of a moral, superior stance on it, I didn't risk my life to go fight. It was for a lie. I tried to go, but it wasn't in the cards for me. And so, that's so I can understand people being frustrated with that. But ultimately, I think that just what Obama said with the war is that we need a political solution. It's not a military solution. So for empire, for what America needs to do with the rest of the world, it's a political solution. It's not a military solution. And so, if you don't turn on politics, politics turns on you. And so that's what I think about Chris Kyle. So that the movie did add, I haven't seen it. I could watch it and enjoy the movie and, look at a dramatized perspective of Chris Kyle's life. And I would love him for, he was, just like Bill Maher said, he was the American psychopathic patriot, and we loved him for it. I can go with that. I think that's fine. But he had PTSD. He needed help. He shouldn't have been taking another guy with PTSD onto a shooting range. He had unresolved feelings, and perhaps maybe he should have felt bad about the things that he did. If we were lied into a war and we're still killing people based on that lie, just like how the Vietnam vets felt when they came back. You lied to us. You told us that we were over there fighting for, fighting communism, but really we're fighting for empire. And we're fighting for all these other reasons. They lied to us. So the Iraq vets should feel very similar to how the Vietnam vets and then the hippies and on the leftists can, take a lesson from that, not spit on the troops and call them baby killers. They're doing their job, and they should feel bad about it. It's not the troops that I'm mad at. It's the political leadership that put them in harm's way. And so again, it's a political solution. The world, America's military problem, it requires a political solution, not a military solution. And I've already pretty much exhausted everything that I want to say. So, stop the empire, stop the fighting. Let's go for peace. Let's start taking care of our children. Let's start having education and health care. Take all that money that we spend unnecessarily for the empire. Take care of our troops. Make sure they have health care. Make sure they have mental care. Make sure they have good pensions. They have decent lives. They put their lives on the line. Their entire lives should be pretty much taken care of. No veteran should ever live on our streets. Give that veteran a house, and then stop the empire. Support the troops. Don't get caught up in the propaganda. Support the troops can mean support the war. And if mankind doesn't put an end to war, war is going to put an end to mankind. It's 2015. We don't need a war no more. And if we're going to be an empire, we can be a lot better and more benevolent. But I don't think empire helps us. So let's scale it back and bring all our boys home. And save some money. And take care of them. And build our infrastructure and roads, bridges, schools, hospitals. And the projects that we need. Especially here in Kentucky.